Poor girl went into the wrong room and slept in her millionaire boss's bed. He fell madly in love. Picture this: a long day at work, an extravagant resort buzzing with celebration, and one tiny mistake that changes everything. That's exactly what happened to Lily, a hard-working personal assistant who thought she was just wrapping up another demanding week for her cold, calculating boss, Henry Ford. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. After too many glasses of expensive wine and a dizzying walk through the hotel hallway, Lily accidentally stumbled into the wrong room and right into Henry's bed. What happens next is a story so unexpected, so full of twists, turns, and undeniable chemistry that it will leave you wondering where professionalism ends and love begins. Lily wasn't someone who made mistakes. Often, she prided herself on being meticulous, reliable, and always in control. Working as the executive assistant to one of the most powerful men in tech, she had learned how to navigate high-pressure situations without breaking a sweat. Her boss, Henry Ford, was known for his razor-sharp focus, commanding presence, and reputation for keeping everyone, including Lily, at arm's length. He wasn't cruel, but he wasn't warm either. To him, relationships were transactions, emotions were liabilities, and rules were non-negotiable. So imagine Lily's horror when she woke up beside him the next morning, tangled in his sheets, with absolutely no memory of how she got there. It was a moment that could have ended her career, or worse, her dignity. But instead, it sparked something neither of them saw coming. Henry wasn't the kind of man who let things slide easily. Every detail mattered to him. Every decision was calculated, and every move was deliberate. Yet here he was, waking up to find his assistant lying peacefully beside him, looking far more relaxed than she ever did in the office. For a brief second, confusion flickered across his face before reality hit like a ton of bricks. This was bad, very bad, and yet there was something about the way Lily looked in that moment, so unguarded, so human, that made him pause. Maybe it was the softness in her expression, or the faint smile tugging at her lips. Whatever it was, it planted a seed of curiosity deep within him. Little did he know that curiosity would grow into something much bigger than either of them anticipated. As the two scrambled to make sense of the situation, their worlds began to collide in ways they never imagined. At first, panic ruled the day. They both knew the stakes. If anyone found out, it would be catastrophic. Rumors spread like wildfire in their industry, and reputations were fragile. Desperate to keep the incident under wraps, they agreed to pretend nothing had happened. But then fate intervened in the form of some nosy investors who mistook their accidental closeness for romance. Suddenly, Lily and Henry found themselves playing a dangerous game of pretend, all while trying to maintain their professional boundaries. The line between act and reality blurred quickly, especially when Henry started acting less like the stoic CEO and more like a man genuinely interested in getting to know her. What makes this story so compelling isn't just the premise, it's the people at its heart. Lily is relatable, real, and refreshingly flawed. She's not your typical damsel in distress. She's smart, ambitious, and fiercely independent. And Henry, well, he's complicated. On the surface, he's every bit the intimidating millionaire tycoon we've come to expect from stories like these. But beneath that polished exterior lies a man yearning for connection, even if he doesn't realize it himself. Their dynamic is electric, charged with tension and mutual respect that slowly morphs into something deeper. As they navigate the chaos of their shared predicament, they discover sides of each other and themselves that neither expected. But don't be fooled. This isn't just a tale of mistaken identity and workplace drama. It's also about vulnerability, trust, and the courage to take risks. Both Lily and Henry are forced to confront parts of themselves they've kept hidden for years. For Lily, it's learning to stand her ground against someone who once intimidated her. For Henry, it's letting go of the rigid control he's clung to for so long. Together, they challenge each other in ways that push them out of their comfort zones, forcing them to ask tough questions. Can love truly blossom in the most unlikely places? Is it possible to mix business and pleasure without losing yourself? And perhaps most importantly, can two people from such different worlds find common ground? Of course, none of this comes easy. Just when they think they've figured things out, new obstacles arise. Office gossip starts swirling, putting pressure on their fragile arrangement. Personal doubts creep in, making them question whether they're ready for what's unfolding between them. And then there's the lingering fear of getting caught, because no matter how convincing their act becomes, there's always the risk that someone will uncover the truth. Each step forward feels like progress, but it's also fraught with uncertainty. You'll find yourself rooting for them one minute and holding your breath the next, wondering if they'll survive the storm brewing around them. The beauty of this story lies in its unpredictability. Sure, there are moments of light-hearted humor, like when Lily stumbles over her words during awkward encounters, or when Henry tries and fails to cook dinner. But there's also raw emotion. There are quiet scenes where they share meaningful conversations, revealing pieces of their past and dreams for the future. These moments feel intimate, almost sacred, as if the rest of the world fades away and it's just the two of them. It's in those instances that you see the true depth of their connection, the kind that transcends titles, roles, and expectations. By now, you might be wondering, does this whirlwind romance have a happy ending, or is it doomed to crash and burn under the weight of secrets and societal norms? Honestly, I can't tell you, not yet anyway, because as much as this story is about falling in love, it's also about finding yourself. Lily and Henry must decide what they're willing to sacrifice for happiness, and whether they're brave enough to rewrite the rules they've lived by for so long. Will they choose safety, sticking to the paths they know, or will they take a leap of faith, trusting that sometimes the greatest rewards come from taking the biggest risks? Before we dive deeper into their journey, let me leave you with this. Imagine standing at a crossroads, knowing that whatever choice you make will change your life forever. That's where Lily and Henry find themselves now. The tension is palpable, the stakes are high, and the outcome is anything but certain. One thing is clear though, they've already crossed a line they can't uncross. Whether that leads to heartbreak or happily ever after remains to be seen. Stay tuned for the next chapter because trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. As the morning sun filtered through the curtains of Henry's hotel room, Lily scrambled to her feet, her mind racing with panic. She had no idea how she'd ended up in this situation, or rather, his bed. But one thing was clear. This could ruin everything. Her job, her reputation, even her dignity. All of it felt like it was hanging by a thread. But as she stood there, trying to piece together the fragments of the previous night, something unexpected happened. Instead of yelling or calling security, Henry simply stared at her, his expression unreadable. For a man who prided himself on control, he seemed oddly calm, almost amused, and that unnerved her more than anything else. Henry wasn't sure what to make of the chaos unfolding before him. On one hand, this was a disaster waiting to happen. On the other, there was something about the way Lily looked so flustered and vulnerable that intrigued him. He had always admired her efficiency, her ability to handle his impossible demands without breaking a sweat. But now, Seeing her stumble over her words, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, made him realize how human she really was. It was a side of her he hadn't seen before, and for reasons he couldn't quite explain, it fascinated him. Still, they both knew this couldn't just be swept under the rug. They needed a plan, and fast. The knock on the door sent them both into a frenzy. When Natalie's voice echoed from the hallway, Lily dove under the bed, faster than she thought possible. As Henry coolly dismissed her co-worker's suspicions, Lily's heart pounded so loudly, she was sure everyone in the resort could hear it. By the time she emerged from her hiding spot, her hair was a mess, her pride was shattered, and her resolve to act normal was slipping away. But Henry didn't let her escape that easily. "If you plan on walking into the wrong room again tonight," he teased, "at least knock first." The comment caught her off guard, leaving her stunned and speechless. Was he actually joking about this? Things only got more complicated as the day went on. Rumors began swirling among their colleagues, fueled by whispers and sideways glances. Someone had seen Lily leaving Henry's room early that morning, and soon enough, speculation turned into gossip. To the investors watching closely, however, these rumors weren't scandalous. They were promising. Charles Callahan, one of the key players in the merger negotiations, pulled Henry aside during lunch. "It's inspiring to see such harmony between you two," he said, with a knowing smile. Henry didn't miss a beat. "Yes. Well, balance is important in all aspects of life," he replied smoothly, placing a casual hand on Lily's back. The gesture might have seemed innocent to outsiders, but to Lily, it felt calculated. Another move in whatever game Henry was playing. But here's the twist. Henry wasn't entirely sure what game he was playing anymore. At first, pretending to be in a relationship with Lily was purely strategic. It helped ease the investors' concerns about stability and trust, qualities essential for sealing the deal. Yet the longer they kept up the charade, the harder it became to separate fact from fiction. Every glance, every touch, it all started feeling too real. And Lily, she wasn't immune to the shift either. Despite her best efforts to stay professional, she couldn't ignore the way her stomach flipped whenever Henry leaned in just a little closer, or the way his rare smiles made her forget why she was supposed to keep her distance. Their dynamic reached a tipping point during the cocktail party that evening. Dressed in an elegant blue dress, Lily tried to focus on blending in, but Henry had other plans. He stayed by her side throughout the event, his presence magnetic and commanding. When Charles approached them again, congratulating them on their partnership, Henry slid his arm around her waist, a move so natural it left Lily breathless. For a moment, she forgot they were faking it. She forgot about the investors, the contract, the risks. All she could think about was the warmth of his hand against her skin, and the intensity of his gaze when he looked at her. By the end of the night, the line between performance and reality had blurred beyond recognition. Back at the resort, Lily found herself alone with Henry on the balcony, the ocean breeze wrapping around them like a secret. "What happens after this?" she asked quietly, staring out at the horizon. Henry hesitated, his usual confidence faltering. "You go back to your life," he finally said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "I go back to mine." But his eyes told a different story, one filled with uncertainty and longing. Lily wanted to believe him, to believe that this would all fade away once they returned to their routines. But deep down, she knew better. Something had changed between them, something irreversible. The next day brought the final negotiation meeting, the culmination of weeks of hard work. As the contract was signed and champagne glasses clinked in celebration, Lily felt a strange emptiness settle in her chest. The deal was done, the mission accomplished, So why did it feel like she was losing something instead of gaining it? Later, that evening, as fireworks lit up the sky over the resort, Lily wandered to the beach, hoping the sound of the waves would quiet her thoughts. But then she heard footsteps behind her. Henry stopped beside her, his hands tucked into his pockets, his expression unreadable. "You can't run forever, Lily," he said softly. His words hit her like a tidal wave, forcing her to confront the truth she'd been avoiding. This wasn't just about business anymore. This was about them, and neither of them was ready to walk away. As the night unfolded, emotions ran higher than ever. Henry confessed that he didn't want to pretend anymore, that what he felt for her was real. Lily wrestled with her own feelings, torn between fear and hope. Could they really make this work? Or would their differences tear them apart? The tension between them crackled like electricity, building toward a moment neither of them could resist. When Henry kissed her under the stars, it wasn't just passion, it was a promise to face whatever came next together. But their journey was far from over. Returning to the city meant facing a whole new set of challenges. How would they navigate their relationship in the workplace? Could they keep it hidden from prying eyes? Or would someone uncover their secret? And most importantly, were they willing to risk everything, their careers, their reputations, their hearts, for a love that defied logic? As the days passed, the stakes grew higher, pulling them deeper into a whirlwind of uncertainty. The climax loomed ahead, promising answers, but not without demanding sacrifices. Lily and Henry had crossed a line they could never uncross. Now the question remained: would their love survive the fall? The days following their secret engagement were a whirlwind of emotions for Lily and Henry. They had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, but instead of fear, they felt an overwhelming sense of hope. Still, the reality of their situation loomed large. Their relationship wasn't just about them anymore. It was tied to careers, reputations, and the delicate balance of power at work. Every glance in the office carried weight, every touch held meaning, and every whispered conversation behind closed doors felt like walking on thin ice. But despite the risks, neither of them wanted to turn back. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at the office, Lily found herself sitting across from Henry in his penthouse apartment. The city lights sparkled outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, but her focus was entirely on him. "What happens if someone finds out?" she asked softly, her voice laced with both curiosity and concern. Henry leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his usual composure faltering slightly. "Then we face it together," he replied, his tone firm yet gentle. It was the first time either of them had openly acknowledged the fragility of their situation, and it made everything feel more real. As weeks passed, keeping their secret became increasingly difficult. Rumors began swirling around the office. Again, fueled by lingering glances and late-night meetings that no one could quite explain. Natalie, ever observant, pulled Lily aside one afternoon. "You're glowing," she said with a knowing smirk. "Spill it." Lily hesitated, torn between loyalty to Henry and the need to confide in someone she trusted. Finally, she admitted the truth, not all of it, but enough to satisfy Natalie's suspicions. To her relief, Natalie didn't judge. Instead, she offered unwavering support. "Love is messy," she said with a shrug, "but sometimes it's worth the mess." Meanwhile, Henry wrestled with his own doubts. He had always prided himself on being in control, but love had a way of dismantling even the strongest walls. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to truly care for someone beyond the confines of business deals and contracts. Yet the thought of losing Lily, whether to scandal or circumstance, terrified him. One night, as they lay side by side in bed. He turned to her and said, "I don't know how to do this without ruining everything." Lily reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "We'll figure it out," she whispered. Together. Their resolve was tested sooner than expected when Charles Callahan unexpectedly announced a surprise visit to the company headquarters. The timing couldn't have been worse. Tensions were already high due to an upcoming merger negotiation, and now they had to navigate Charles's presence while maintaining their facade. During lunch, Charles made a pointed comment about how close Lily and Henry seemed. "It's almost like you two are inseparable," he remarked with a sly grin. Lily froze, panic rising in her chest, but Henry simply laughed it off. "Just good teamwork," he said smoothly, placing a casual hand on her shoulder. The gesture might have seemed innocent to outsiders, but to Lily, it was a reminder of the stakes they were playing for. The climax came during the final stages of the merger negotiations. Everything hinged on this deal. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about proving that their partnership, both professional and personal, could withstand scrutiny. As Henry presented the final proposal, Lily noticed something unusual. His hands were trembling ever so slightly. It was a rare crack in his otherwise impenetrable armor, and it reminded her of how much he had risked for her. When the investors finally signed the papers, the room erupted in applause, but Lily barely heard it. All she could see was Henry, who caught her eye and gave her a subtle nod. In that moment, she knew they had won, not just the deal, but something far greater. With the pressure of the merger lifted, Lily and Henry decided it was time to come clean. They called a meeting with the board, fully prepared to face whatever consequences awaited them. To their surprise, the reaction was mixed, but ultimately supportive. While some expressed concerns about potential conflicts of interest, others admired their courage and commitment to transparency. "We've built this company on trust," Henry said during the meeting, "and I believe our relationship strengthens that foundation." Lily added, "We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for a chance to prove that love and professionalism can coexist." In the months that followed, Lily and Henry worked tirelessly to redefine their roles within the company. They implemented new policies to ensure fairness and accountability, earning respect from colleagues and competitors alike. Their love story became a quiet legend within the industry, a testament to the idea that sometimes breaking the rules leads to the most extraordinary outcomes. On their wedding day, surrounded by friends, family, and a few curious co-workers, Lily and Henry exchanged vows that reflected not only their journey, but also their shared vision for the future. As they danced under the string lights at their reception, Lily rested her head against Henry's chest. "Do you think we'll ever stop surprising people?" she asked with a smile. Henry chuckled, tightening his grip on her waist. "Both, maybe," he said, "but I hope not." For them, life was no longer about perfection or control. It was about embracing the unexpected, trusting each other, and building something beautiful together. And as they looked out at the guests celebrating around them, they knew one thing for certain. Their love wasn't just a chapter in their lives. It was the beginning of everything.